Hello, everyone. This is episode 13 of Trainwreck Success. My name is Helen Gottstein. I am here with my amazing, indomitable, wonderful co-host, Miriam Lottner, CEO and founder of Reveal, STEM education, cards and games for children aged 4 to 8. Miriam, I'm excited to be here for an interview with me.
I'm so excited to be here. I feel a little bit badly that I made you introduce yourself. I also have to apologize that I sound a little bit like a dead rhinoceros right now, but we're going to power through this interview because I think it will be the most important yet. It's not every day that you get to interview and speak to an executive communication coach of your caliber, and I really want to talk today about the things that you do that make women more powerful, more empowered, able to communicate in the ways that you do, not just women. I know you're an executive communication coach for everybody, but I do want to talk specifically because you've been working so much in this field about, the things that hold women back and how we can work towards bringing them forward. But before we get there, I do want to ask for your train wreck, since we've all gone through this. Let us not ignore the train wreck part of this episode.
What beautiful. So as the founder of Loud and Clear Training, all of my train wrecks relate to complete, we say in English, like faux pas, complete like disasters in the communication training space. So one really small example is I'm working with a group of Muslim, Christian, Jewish young leaders from the Azrieli College of Engineering. They're in a leadership group for young women that the college wants to invest in and, bring forward. And I'm working with them on interview and presentation skills. And I've just done this whole spiel about turning up with confidence and bringing your power and I turn and I knock my glass of water off the desk and it smashes all over the floor. And as it smashes, I say, F-bomb! This intercultural community goes like this. And I'm like, yeah.
You just gotta roll with it, right?
You just gotta roll with it. But perhaps an even worse, at least that was only in a group of 15 people from this college, right? But perhaps the most public, most painful.
I can see your blushing.
Oh, I'm so blushing. It was so bad. It was so bad. I was like, Helen, way to go, girl. Perhaps one of my worst ever was at the very, very beginning of the lockdown, at the beginning of COVID-19. I knew that everybody was going to get into the webinar space, right? Running webinars, online training. And I said, I'm going to I ran a session called How to Avoid Death by Webinar. And it was the worst. It was the worst webinar you could.
I'm sorry that I'm laughing. I remember you telling me about this. That it was terrible.
It was think bad and go worse, go darker. It was so bad. I ran a poll. Nobody could find the poll. Nobody could see the poll. Those who find the poll couldn't figure out how to put their responses on. It was awful. I played a video. No one could hear the video. It was just one disaster after another. I see that some comments have come in. I'm just going to pull up. I'm looking over here to pull up the comments.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm already crying because
thank you
for getting to me. So I'm already in tissue mode.
Ken, fabulous.
Oh my God. All of our weekly friends here on this episode.
Really fun.
Everyone.
Yeah. So all that stuff about having to turn up and be the most professional presenter in the world places often, I feel extra pressure and extra, expectation on me as a presentation coach. I have to be able to do it bigger, better, badder, smoother than everybody else. And I do not always deliver on that.
Okay, so let's talk about two aspects of that I think are really important that you just brought up, if you don't mind. One is, how do you recover right? Like, how do you recover from the F-bomb dropping, glass breaking, water spilling fiasco? How do you recover professionally from I sold a, death by webinar, or, how to avoid death by webinar, and then I didn't deliver. When you, even as a manager, if you're trying to speak to somebody and communicate something effectively and you realize you completely didn't land it, like, how do you back out of that in the best way so that you can, maintain your professional integrity, but also be true to yourself and admit that it happened? And the other part of that I want to just talk about is, especially as women, I think we put these incredible expectations on ourselves that we're going to look perfect and we're going to act perfect and we're going to always have the right words. And we're going to console people correctly and we're going to understand their, we have all this really, really high level of expectation. And then sometimes we can't deliver for whatever reason. We can't deliver. How do you forgive yourself for that? How do you, move beyond it and not allow that anxiety to build up? So those are my two questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Miriam. So I think about the recovery, I think we just get better at forgiving ourselves and saying, so it was truly a disastrous webinar, but it's one disastrous webinar and it doesn't overshadow the other successes that I've had. So getting a little perspective on, I was okay before this and I'll be okay after it. It doesn't define me or my capacity. It was really painful at the time, but it doesn't determine what will happen to me after that, right? So that's put it in a broader context is one tool. And also to say, it was painful for me, but nobody else cares about it like I care about it. They're not judging me as much as I'm judging myself. Or if they are, they should live and be well, life happens, like Shifra says right now. It happens regularly. It happens to all of us, So let it. Are we going to sing this episode? I think we're going to sing. Are you ready? Let it go. Let it go.
Let it go.
Don't hold it back anymore. There it is.
There it is. Because if there's going to be a final episode of Trainwreck, we definitely had to sing.
We had to sing. So that's one part of it. And the other part, part two of your question was, women put such pressure on themselves, and how does that impact us? So what we know about girls at school is that we are really, really, really successful in a framework which tells us exactly what to do. We're really good at putting up our hand and waiting to be called on and being rewarded for good behaviour. But once we get out in the big bad world, the way you get ahead and the way you get noticed is that you don't wait to be called on. You volunteer, you speak up, you speak out of turn. Sometimes you even interrupt and stand up for what you believe and assert your opinion. Sometimes, depending on context and status and seniority and so on and so forth. But the expectation that we will continue to be rewarded with gold stars, or that there's a perfect way to say something, is a leftover from when we were at school and we were rewarded for good behaviour. And boys were rewarded for behaviour where they didn't necessarily wait to be called on, where they shouted out, and as a result they're much better at speaking up in extemporaneous situations where they don't wait to be called on, where they just say what they're thinking. They don't wait to be called on. They don't have a moment to prepare their thoughts. They just hit it. So I will plug right now that on next Wednesday, I'm opening a course on impromptu speaking skills, which is not only for women, but is certainly for people who see themselves as holding themselves back and wanting to speak up more often, more clearly, with more confidence, with more power, because they're tired of holding themselves back and they know that they have expertise and experience that they want to share in a more consistent way. And that's what this course is all about, because I was tired of holding myself back. That's why I became a communications consultant.
Amazing. So just tell us a little bit more about the course. How many sessions is it? Is it online? Is it in person? Details. Details.
Oh, all right. It's super online. Think online and go further. No, you can't. It's just online. It's just online. 4 sessions, Wednesday mornings, starting next Wednesday at 10 a.m. because it's on work time, because it's a work skill. I want people to be able to speak up more powerfully and feel more comfortable speaking up at work. So it's on work time. And some people, their work is sending them. So makes sense.
Fabulous. Okay, so
have a comment.
That's fine. They should check in Loud and Clear Training to find out more.
Yes, they should absolutely check in. Thank you, Miriam. I love that you are helping people connect with me at Loud and Clear Training.
Listen, Helen, I think that that's important. I also think it's important to highlight the fact that I called you, I don't know, 15 weeks ago before we started this series and said, Helen, I have this great idea. How do what do you think about? And you really ran with it. You have organized most of the speakers. You've done all the logistics. You've done all the kind of camera, StreamYard, et cetera, background work. And you've really made it your own. And I love the fact that we were able to co-host, but I really have to just, applaud and reward you. I feel like, not reward, sorry, no gold stars. I'm saying acknowledge. Okay, gold stars and acknowledge. I think that we've put something into this space that wasn't there before. As you mentioned to me when we were speaking, I think miscarriage has been mentioned more than ever before in a, professional setting, depression, train wrecks, admitting to our failures and rising above them. I think there's, marriage issues, financial issues, etc. I think there's been so many issues that have come up in this series, even though it was only 13 episodes, though, that people just don't really talk about. And so I really do want to give you all the gold stars and all the accolades and say that you've created this amazing space for people. And I think they felt comfortable talking about, whatever burning issues were happening at the time and, could have been in their past that they hadn't resolved, et cetera. And that really deserves a lot of credit. It's not so straightforward as people, may have looked from the outside. So thank you for that. Thank you from the community. Brilliant.
Miriam, I really am proud of what we've done here together. I really am. I really appreciate us creating a space where so many women spoke so bravely about their businesses, about their concerns, about bias. I love what Miriam Schwab brought about bias. We've touched on racism, sexism, ableism. I feel like we've really done some really good work. Ken.
Agreed. So, Helen, if you had advice for the people that are listening, and I know there's lots, about one thing or two things that they could quickly apply to just kind of rethink how they approach external communication, what would they be? Again, well, I don't want you to, I know you can't give like a full, communication course, but what's like a big issue that you see that people, could quickly fix that might help them?
Well, I'll share. I'm going to go back to what I said before about perfectionism or the reasons that people hold themselves back so much is that they expect that what they're going to do has to be perfect. The expectation that if I've got a thought and it's like half formed, so I should wait until it's completely formulated in my mind, or I should wait until I have all the data. Women are notorious for making sure they've got all their ducks in a row before they say, I think, or I seem to remember. Like, there are many ways that we could approach drawing on something we're not entirely clear about and still give it voice, right? So one way to really help yourself step forward is to lower your expectation of being perfect, is to lower your expectation of perfect consistency. Like, why? Why do we expect that of ourselves? And it blocks us from speaking up, from volunteering, from stepping forward, from saying yes to a speaking opportunity that's rolled our way over and over again. So I would say let go of the expectation of being of perfection or needing to nail it. One of the things that I teach in all the public speaking training that I do is that there is no perfect. You can never get it all right. And your audience doesn't know, right? They have no idea. Everybody watching right now, do you see my notes? Even if you're watching this on replay, do you know what's on my page? You do not. It is invisible to you. In fact, nobody knows. In fact, I hardly know myself. But I let go of the need to nail it every time and say, it'll be good enough. And doing something is going to beat being too worried to act every day of the week.
That is okay. So you totally nailed that. You're the communication rock star. I only want to add to that. People asked me that question recently, and it's something that comes up a lot at work, where women send emails with just and sorry, right? Sorry to bother you. Sorry to be asking this. Sorry to be wasting your time. Sorry, or I just wanted to, right? I just wanted to. No, why are you justifying yourself? Like, that is literally it's justification. I have to justify the fact that I'm sending you an email or requesting a meeting or having a conversation or expressing my opinion. And those words slip in there so quickly, and yet they remove all of our legitimacy, right? We've just taken away our own legitimacy. And so I just, I always tell people, just be conscious of when you say you're sorry, and also when you justify yourself, because that's what the word just really means, right? You're justifying your existence, which you don't need to. You have just as much right as anyone else to be in this situation. And so, stop using just before any word.
Yeah. So there are 3 points in time where, women use this as a characteristic figure of both speech and writing in order to soften the nature of our requests. And I'll share with you that the jury is out, because it's not yet an even playing field. There is some evidence that suggests that people, men and women, people of all genders, are more open to requests made by women when we use like mollifying, softening language. So that's it's also out there. I'll also say that if you write a text to somebody and you don't need to soften, then I recommend reviewing it. So just before we came online, I wrote an email to somebody promoting the course that I mentioned earlier about impromptu speaking skills. And I started writing the email and I said, just wondering. And I was like, why am I just wondering? I'm wondering. And because I know my audience, I know, kind of where she's aligned politically and how she feels about women speaking up and speaking proudly for themselves and taking up an equal amount of space. I took it out and I was able to make my language a bit more muscular. So it's absolutely true that all of that terminology does reduce the potency, the power of the way women speak. And we use it at 3 points at the beginning, doing things like just wondering, or, this may be silly to ask, but I was, just thought and we put in words in the middle, like, I think, when it's actually stuff we know, like we know, but we say, I'm wondering. And at the end, we say stuff like, does that make sense?
Is that okay?
Does that make sense? Like,
did you clear?
Was I clear? Which is inviting somebody to evaluate, no, it didn't make any, why would you invite that? Helen said that to me today. What? Okay, Debbie Zilberman is here. Ken. Very good. Thanks.
Oh, excellent. It's so nice to see everyone's comments.
Yeah, lovely. Nadia, you and everybody else, really, we're all guilty of it.
We're all guilty of it. I know, and I tend to mentor people, other people, and then I catch it myself and say, wait, just take that out.
Helen, I've been asked, sorry, just one more moment about language and how we use languages in ways that devalue us, invite others to devalue us. I was asked at a training I was doing for a company called Medtronic, does it ever become automatic? Will I ever manage to completely stop myself from using that language? And I'm like, that's asking, will I ever manage to completely unprogram and, unpack all the stuff that's been like layered into me? And I'm like, maybe not. But our job is not to become perfect, to be able to do something automatically. Our job is to recognize it and act to ameliorate it, like to reduce the frequency with which we do something like that. And that's good. That's enough.
Listen, I agree that that's both good and it's enough. And I also just want to say that when you prepped me for my BBC television show, remember that? Yes, I was on the BBC and Helen was my communication coach.
No idea.
We have not figured this out yet. I remember you saying to me, whatever this is going to be, you're enough and it's going to be okay. And I kept trying to deprogram, I'm not beautiful enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not whatever, in order to be the face of whatever it was. And I realized that deprogramming, it's probably a lifetime pursuit, right? But just getting to the stage where you can say, I am me and I am enough and it's okay. I think that's really important. And I think that we do have to continually work on it, right? Because it doesn't ever become second nature. I don't know how you can exist in modern society in 2021 or, whatever year it will be in the future when people are watching this and not be inundated with, visual expectations of what you're going to look like and social expectations of, how you're going to behave, etc.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's constant work. I don't think we're ever going to, get to a plateau and just be like, okay, I'm here. I'm perfect. It's done. I mean, unless you're Donald Trump, I don't like. I don't think that there's another human on the planet that has an ego that size.
I have no immediate plans of becoming Donald Trump. So, but thanks for the. I'll entertain the thought, Ken.
No, gross! Don't do that.
Yael,
you have a business question for me?
Yael makes this comment. Ken. Very good. Yeah, Miriam, what did you say? I was distracted by the comments.
It's all good. Do you have a business question for me?
Do I have a business question for you? I am thinking a lot about how people who are freelance, like myself, contend with stuff to do with mindset and how we are encouraged to set ourselves really ambitious goals. And I certainly have set myself ambitious goals. I have a vision board over here that has a number of very significant companies on it. And I've put pieces of paper there that say, come in, we need this. The time is ripe, the door is open. And sometimes our income is lower for a particular month than it has been in years past. Like May is usually one of my strongest months. April used to be like the financial backbone of other months of the year. And this year it just wasn't. Do you have something you can say to someone like me who is so reliant on the ongoing flow of work coming to me?
So I'm going to say a few things. One, the market, if you follow financial markets and the amount of companies that are raising, it feels like everybody's a unicorn and everybody's blasting off into the billion-dollar stratosphere. And as a freelancer, especially in Israel, right, I think they're $2.2 billion was raised in the last quarter, some ridiculous amount of money. At this point, you have to be 26 years old, be a graduate of 8200, and people are just writing you, $30 million checks. That aside, the country and the world have experienced, a once in 100-year pandemic for the last 17 months. And, as a manufacturer, I can tell you inflation is going to hit probably at 30% next year. And companies are starting to rethink their financial plans. And they're relooking at budgets. And I think that there's a larger kind of global financial picture at play, which is not necessarily centralized in Israel, but I think we're seeing a reflection of that in companies, in the workforce and in their spending and in their budgets. So while April and May, I think would have probably been strong months because they were budgets usually from Q1, right? So January, February, March, and the budgets were like freed up in April, May, June, and they want to spend that money before the summer. So if you'll just remember that January, February, March were really uncertain. And so companies were very nervous about setting aside budget for April, May when they were doing budgets back in November, December, January, February, March. So I think what you'll find is that cash will free up and that companies will realize that they have budget to spend before we head into like summer and then the end of the year. And I think it's just it's sort of like it's a bad luck, kind of bad timing of the year, bad COVID, go away situation, right? Go away. Having said all that, I do think that, that fluctuations in business are pretty normal. Like I look at my sales from this year to last year and I'm down 75%. Is that because every family was at home and playing games last year? Maybe. Is it because there's a, global slowdown coming? Maybe. It's so hard to know, right? I didn't change anything. Like my games are still my games. My telescopes are still my telescopes. My coloring books are still, but I could beat myself up over it, or I could say, okay, so I can introduce new products and I can shift things around. And I think sometimes you have to look at, is there something that you're doing that's not working, or is it just that it's not working the way that it used to work? And if that's the case, then look at, am I still offering the products that my people need, right? Because that's the question I'm asking myself now is, are my products meeting a need, right? And if they're not meeting a need, then what is the need? And then let me go match that. I think that it's always important to be, conscious of like, who is your customer and what do they need right now? And then making sure that you have mapped to that rather than like, I sell X, right? It's like, no, I meet a customer need, which is Y. Yeah. And back from there. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, right. And not expect the cheese, not expecting the cheese to come back. Who moved my cheese? Not expecting the cheese to always be where it was. I think it's true. I think I'm actually pretty strong at adapting to what I'm identifying in the market and rolling with it. I did a major adaptation to move all of my work online. And now, this course that's coming up, it's going to be online because it's so much more convenient. And I don't have to rent a space. People don't have to travel. It's so much more efficient. And I don't have to ask anybody for their, inoculation pass.
For their green passport, exactly.
Yeah, I don't. I don't have to ask it.
I also think, Helen, that, running a communication course online when all of us are communicating online these days, right? In business settings, most of us are spending a lot of time on Teams. And even that has special skills, right? We're like little talking heads now, right? And so we have to think a little bit differently about how we communicate because even our hand, I'm a big hand talker and I have really exceptionally large hands. And so I have to try to keep my hands out of the frame because people are like, what, usually if they see them in a Teams meeting or what have you, they're like, wow, big hands. And so it's just the little things that you have to, kind of facilitate like how you're going to present yourself in this format. So I actually think it's great that you're giving the course in the format that people exist in.
Yeah, everybody's online right now. Everyone. I also say, no one is going to notice your hands. Just keep your hands close to your body. Don't put them up here in the camera where it's terrifying anyway. Like, terrifying. Hands should be pretty close to the body anyway.
Well, that's good advice. You only gave that to me in episode 13.
Thanks. Hysterical. There was a question earlier about the Zoom chair. So I'll relate to what your Zoom chair says about you, which is I work with a lot of CEOs of startup companies, more mid-sized than small, but many people have attached importance to the chair that they're sitting on. They like these even you buy a chair that's called a CEO chair, it has a headrest behind you, right? So I look like I spent a lot of time in a big chair surveying the room and leaning back and looking out over the factory floor at my people.
I think that looks like the Emperor from Star Wars, those chairs, like with that huge black thing behind it. That's
the huge black, or even the skeletal style chair headrest.
Right.
I'll say this: take away the chair. You don't want, even subconsciously, for your audience to think that you're resting while you're talking to them. And the headrest gives this impression, even subconsciously, that you are inclined to rest in work situations. It's the same kind of subconscious message that we convey if we have our cell phone on the desk, even if we're not looking at it. I'm talking to you, we're hanging out with friends, or we're in a business meeting and you have your phone next to you, even face down. If you have your phone next to you, it impacts my sense of your being present with me. It impacts my how I feel about the quality of the attention that I'm getting, even if you are completely with me. Same deal with the headrest. It implies something about your attention, about your willingness to engage with me. Do not use the back of your chair, and do not, see that? No headrest.
No
No headrest, and she's back. No headrest.
I have
Okay.
like a shoulder rest. Is that okay?
I will allow the shoulder rest.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I am sitting on a chair. I'm not sitting like on a stool, with.
Yeah. I don't need you.
Okay, fair enough. And something about that, actually, it's interesting because over the last 25 years in Israeli tech, so first nobody had cell phones and then we had cell phones, and everyone was downloading, it was like those Nokia phones, right? Those old Nokia phones. People were downloading really annoying rings, right? And it was only text messaging. We were like that, number text messaging. And then slowly smartphones came into being. But I remember there being a culture of especially when I was in sales, of I never would have my phone out and I would always keep it off. And then when I was meeting with people, I would be so offended if they had their phone on the desk and were texting. And now the culture seems to be you could sit in a meeting and legit, there are people that are just on their phones. It used to be kind of people would be hidden, sort of trying to maybe type on their laptop a private email. But now they're just whipping out their phones as if it's a completely acceptable thing. And I find it not only, insulting and that they're closed off to the conversation, but I have no interest. I'm if you're going to sit in a meeting on your phone, you might as well not be in the meeting at all, right? There's no purpose for you being here because you're not engaging, and your brain can't really do two things, right? You cannot be texting and listening. That's not a thing.
Yes, I agree. And you think it's rude, and it just gives a message of just not, people are not feeling that you're actually engaged, that you don't care. Totally.
Right. No, and I think it gives off the feeling of your time is not as valuable as my time, which, I think is that important distinction, right? So also I think to just turn them off when they're in Zoom calls, because then the interference comes, right? And then when they're secretly texting while they're on Zoom.
Yeah, totally. I think that I'll share that the most common question that I get asked is about a fear of public speaking, and will I ever get over it? And will I always be paralyzed? Or how can I not go blank when I'm in front of an audience? So I'd like to relate to that just quickly, because it's the most common thing that people speak to me about. So just about why do we go blank in public? We go blank in public because we have two spheres to our brains, and in one of them, the left one, we have all of the details. We have all the lexical items that make up language. We have data. We have facts. That's stored over here. And on the other side is everything to do with image, emotion, body awareness, physiological sensation in part, memory, imagery, story. That's an ability to pull all the details of a story together, give a bottom line, a summary of something. That's on the other side. And when we stand up to speak in public and we go blank, what we're left with is just the feeling side of the brain. We lose access to language, all the words. We lose language to the vehicle for our professional expertise. We lose access to all the good things we were going to say. They're gone, and we're left with, wet hands, dry mouth, beating heart. So there are two main strategies that I teach people to overcome the likelihood that that will happen, to reduce the likelihood that that will happen. One is, as you're about to go live, as you're about to walk up onto stage, as you're about to take the mic, as you're about to hit the go live button on your StreamYard broadcast, you continue speaking with somebody who's there, or even to your imaginary friend, so that you continue to show your brain, like literally like show yourself, here I am walking and talking. Oh, I still have access to all my words. Here are my words. I have words. These are my words. Like you're literally like coaching yourself to show the two parts of my brain are still connected. I will have access to my language. So that's one approach. And the other is, that's for people who are comfortable in small talk and you know, that's a good strategy for them. And I think most people will know which of these two strategies will work best for them. And the other is to be on your own, be calm. Public bathrooms have been extremely helpful for this, for my clients in the past. Isolate, calm down, and focus on what's the first thing that I'm going to say. Because for most people, it's the first few moments which are the most difficult. And after that, you're kind of like launched, right? It's that there's like a hump at the beginning of beginning to speak, where all of those like physiological symptoms of anxiety come to the fore. And after that, you're kind of like sailing, just sailing.
That was really excellent advice. And now I know why you make us talk through the entire launch of each episode. Again, I don't know why you kept that for 13 episodes to yourself, but okay.
Miriam, actually, what I was doing when I was talking to you in most of the lead up to most of the times we've gone live, it was just trying to figure out, where were you? And like, what should we write in the banners, right? Trainwreck success with Helen Gottstein. You know, what should I write? So, Ken, like today.
I'm teasing. Yeah. All right, Helen, I think that it's time for our lightning round.
Here we go. I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Okay,
so. Excellent. Helen, what is your favorite word?
Hope.
Ooh, I love it.
Hope.
What turns you on spiritually, physically, or emotionally?
Water, pretty much. Waterfalls, the ocean, hot shower, a bath, a lake, water, the rain. I love the rain. I love the smell of the rain, sound of the rain. Love it. Water.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you what's your favorite sound, but
the rain.
Also the rain. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you could try any profession other than your own, what would it be? I know it would not be a product manager at Microsoft.
I'd be interested to try sales, to really like move into sales. It'd be interesting for me.
I think you'd be excellent at it, actually. Maybe it's a career path.
Maybe.
Maybe. And our finale. If God exists, what would you like to hear him say, her say, them say, when you hit those pearly gates?
Well done.
Excellent.
Gold star.
Gold stars. All the gold stars. Helen, it's been a trip.
It's really a pleasure. Yeah. Miriam, thank you so much for reaching out to me and creating this with me this whole time. And I'm really proud that today I described what you do effectively. First time. All right.
Yes, first time. That was super impressive. And I do want to thank all of our viewers, though. It's been really an amazing experience to grow and change and kind of become, right? We talked about the becoming part of this. And I do feel like in these 13 episodes, we have become something entirely different. We've definitely molted and shed some skin and become something else. And it's been a really fabulous ride. And thank you all so much for the feedback and the comments and the support. And yeah, it's been really great. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye for now.